Conventional is boring, and who else can define it more than Saif Ali Khan? I love that you literally are not thinking like everybody else is, and you're just looking at roles as they are, not worrying about how much space I'm getting, not worrying about am I getting the being the center of attention. Though Laal Kaptaan is a different film, it is about you. You are the central character, but otherwise, Saif, was this a conscious decision?
No, I quite like being the center of attention.
You do?
Yeah, and I quite like roles that are, films that are centered around my character because, that's something you get used to. And it's a little difficult to
break that,
adjust to that. And also, I don't know if, how polite people are to people who aren't the central role. Generally, I mean, these are all things you get used to, how people behave with you, how you're treated on a set. So it's nice to be where I am and where I've been, and I wonder how I'll feel if I'm not. I mean, I did Darna Mana Hai years ago. I did LOC because I just thought it'll be really cool to do a kind of a war film, which depends, I think, on your cinematic upbringing also. Like I've grown up also watching a lot of World War II films, Where Eagles Dare and kind of Guns of Navarone or Bridge Too Far. These films have been multi-starrers, where people don't have, all the lines, but you've got a lot of stars doing smaller parts. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I'll always do it. There's, as long as it's interesting and the film is fun, or I'm happy to have a ensemble cast. Yeah.
And the reason I said it also was because, we were doing some other films interview and Siddharth Anand, the director, brought up saying that, it'll be really nice if actors shed their egos a bit and come together, superstars, come together to do a film like Tiger and Hrithik were doing. And they said that is a challenge. Do you think that's sort of true? Like you said, that it becomes a challenge. You're also a producer.
But I'm sure neither of them are shedding their egos. I'm sure they are doing their best to compete and to be the best. I mean, and that's part of the excitement of that kind of movie also, where, who's going to be better and who do you root for, and, I'm a Tiger fan or I'm a Hrithik fan. I'm sure that's part of it. Unfortunately or fortunately, I think filmmaking is a highly competitive business. When you shoot a scene with your mother in the movie, you should compete with her. You should compete with everybody you shoot with to make your character the most important person in front of that camera. That doesn't mean you have to be underhand or jump on your head. But in terms of energy, you have to compete, because without that competition, things fall flat, You can't be deferential and say, "Nahi, nahi, aapke baad," or "after you." I think anything that is potentially interesting to an audience can be marketed. And Siddharth is a good friend of mine who we've done a lot of work together. And he's a very commercial thinking director who, to have Hrithik and Tiger, which is kind of like they're in some ways very similar, in terms of their energy and their vibe and the kind of how you would slot them as
action superheroes.
Action superheroes, good looking, great dancers, all this kind of stuff. So it'll be it makes sense from a marketing point of view to say, what if we saw Hrithik and Tiger together in a film? Brilliant. When you see them dancing, it's like, watching a strange kind of mirror image. Yeah, so it's like...
The first thing that obviously comes to mind when I saw the Laal Kaptaan trailer was, this is never before that I've seen you do, obviously. Of course, because you're playing a Naga Sadhu and all of that. Besides the putting up the get-up every day and sitting on hair and makeup and, doing your lines, what was it that you found really difficult to do with this character? What did you sort of...
Actually, the core of the difficulty was, who this person is, because there's this monstrous-looking guy who has to do these... it's a tough thing. It's quite a lot of heavy lifting as an actor to play a character like this who's basically... It's like a Western. And like an Italian Western, in a very Indianized way, set in an extremely wild period, exactly like William Dalrymple's just written a book called The Anarchy, which is the time when the East India Company was taking over. And the Mughal Empire was collapsing. So there were pockets of power, and everybody was shifting, fighting, and things were changing, and nobody was secure, and everything was up in the air. And kingdoms and princes were lost and made, and you know, hired guns were riding around, and that's where the film is set. So if you got a guy like that, who's like, I think, you know, part animal, who when he has to growl and he has to say lines and he has to deliver in his expression. So to find the soul of the character and to actually find what kind of guy this is, that was the hardest thing, because I remember the sound recordist told me, you know, you're not sounding, after a couple of days of shooting, he said, you're not sounding like the guy.
Okay.
You know, so I think you should spend some time by yourself, or whatever advice he gave me. We were sitting around the fire. And I spent a lot of time in the bathroom, not on the pot, but in front of the mirror. I had a nice hotel suite in lovely places we shot all over Rajasthan. So one of these castles had a big bathroom. And I remember spending half the night in there.
Just to get that tone, that growl right or something.
Yeah. I was smoking a bit, which I shouldn't have been. And I had the candles on, and I was just thinking of who this guy is, and it took a couple of days. So if you're saying what was the hard part,
yeah,
it was to figure out how to play this character and to become, and I think I changed as a person while finding that role, because I've never done anything like it. The amount of makeup, because a film like that, even the costume tells a story. So somebody's putting a knife, a dagger in the waist, and you're carrying a gun, and you're carrying a spear, and then you're putting on this and that, and you're weighed down by about 50 kilos worth of stuff.
Correct.
Including a wig and then makeup, and then they can't even touch up your makeup because you're on a horse, and the horse is moving, and it's hot. So, and it's right in the sun, and then you're supposed to perform and not. And there was a Gary Oldman said in Dracula when he was talking about the making of Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula.
Correct.
He said the trick was not to let the disguise or the costume wear you. You know, and I didn't understand what he meant, but I did when I got to the set here, because you feel the costume's wearing you. You know, you're not coming out.
You're constantly aware of the burden of the costume.
Yeah.
So that has to be sort of.
It has to become. You have to be able to. You have to be able to dance in it. You have to be able to sleep in it. Maybe rehearsal would have been important in the sense that I should have. I used to take it off at lunchtime, but then after a while I kept it on the whole day. I think I lost quite a lot of hair. That got ripped out.
Really?
Yeah, so it was torturous, but also boundary expanding, and really, I don't know, I just feel, and I used to keep fantasizing about how I'm going to celebrate the end of this, and it was going to be with like a 30-year-old whiskey and some Chinese food. That's all I could think of. Yeah, pretty much, I think I did.
You look happy yourself, if I can say so.
Yeah.
But no, I think.
Anyway, that was the hardest part. Going to location 2 hours was hard, but that wasn't the hardest part. But it's a rough film to make, because it's, again, like I said, it's a Western, so locations are really important. And India has got the most amazingly rugged locations. Various parts of Rajasthan have these mud mountains and rivers and forts, and the places, the locations we've shot in, I don't think anyone's shot in. And there's a lot of culture today in cinema of CG, where in computer graphics you make up the whole landscape. So we've actually gone and shot live, which, and you know, the kind of riding and the locations. I mean, this is something that I think I'll be proud of forever. It's like swimming, you know, or flying halfway across the world alone, or one of those achievements, you know.
Like a bucket list thing?
Yeah, I've always wanted to do a Western since I've been a kid, because like Clint Eastwood and Sergio Leone's Westerns, there were many qualities in those films that I loved. Like Clint Eastwood went on to make some films like High Plains Drifter, which had a bit of a supernatural element. And there's obviously revenge at the core of it. And there's this single guy who's completely out of his time. So our film is a lot like that, but it's very Indian. Yeah. To take a Naga sadhu and to make him a sword fighter and not a gunslinger, you know, to have these Thakurs and Nawabs as various characters, and the East India Company being and the landscape was just the most amazing experience. So it was part of the bucket list. It's something I think I'll always, and our westerns were always, you know, I mean, kind of, yeah, there have been great adaptations in the past. I've not seen, you know, I mean, films like obviously Ganga Jamuna and Sholay. The Dacoit Bandit film, not really a western though, you know, it's a little more, I think, authentic in terms of those things that make a western, which is that guy, that one guy who is kind of, you don't even know whether he's a good guy or a bad guy, and he's just like trying to make some money and survive, and then this stuff is happening, and he's this, you know, not much of a talker, but when he says something it's quite deadly, and then, you know, the action part.
And the swagger.
And the horses, and swagger without going into, you know, a kind of, like how Feroz Khan Saab did those westerns also is what we don't want to do, you know, like, so it was like a very Indian kind of, because our characters in India, and that time in India, is wilder than the Wild West could ever have been, actually. It's just these influences are strong from the West. So we don't look at our own culture. But if you look at your own culture, it's much more insane than anything the West could do. I mean, Red Indians and, you know, a few women getting attacked by those guys while they're trying to steal their land is nothing compared to the anarchy of, you know, 18th century India.
Do you struggle with action? I mean, I know you've done things like Race, but this is very different. This is more raw. Is that something you truly enjoy, or do you struggle? Or have you struggled in the beginning?
I mean, in the beginning, for sure. I mean, and in fact, I probably enjoy doing it less now, but I used to really want to do it when I was a kid, but I don't think it suited me.
Okay.
So, you know, I was a bit young and chocolatey looking. But action also, you know, is a deceptive thing. It's not really about strength or about speed and all that. It's about timing. It's like dance. So you don't have to put that much into it, which is, you realize later. And if you put too much into it, it starts looking bad, like dance. Correct. You know, but if you time it right, then it starts looking great. So sword fighting is something I've always enjoyed. And we've done it in a few films here and there. So by the time I came here, I think I was pretty good at it. And action's also in the eyes, and it's in the expression, and it's like good old Sunny Deol and Ajay Devgan and Amitabh Bachchan. It's about delivering that line with a certain amount of seriousness where people take it seriously. And a Western is a very difficult thing because you're usually on a horse and you're one guy and you're surrounded by 20 guys and you have to say, don't mess with me or I'll kill you. And people have to take you seriously. So that power of delivery is frightening for an actor because people, you know, if you don't get it right, it's just funny. So, yeah.
That's
so
true.
I enjoy action, but I always put too much into it and I always get hurt and I'm always cut and bruised and...
Battle scars.
Yeah, but you don't get, I mean, our duplicate, I had a great duplicate. Salam Bhai did the action here and Zoeb did my dupe, and I loved them both. He was, poor guy, he was a bit leaner than I was, and then they made him put on weight. But, yeah, no, it's great fun, but it's very demanding, especially Bollywood action, because it's kind of really raw, and also we don't have duplicates. Most of these guys are doing it themselves because it looks more convincing.
You recently shot with your wife for her new show.
Yes.
The season. Do you get heads up on what's coming your way
yes,
in an interview?
I mean, not normally.
For
but
this.
I told her, I mean, she said that, listen, you have to take it serious. She takes that show really seriously. So she kept, the last 3 days, she's been telling me, you're coming on Monday, and you know, these are, questions are like this, so think about
She
them.
lined you up literally.
A little bit. She said, take it seriously, and, you know, people kind of look up to you, us and you, for being a modern thinking person. So, you know, give some good answers.
How do you sort of look at her as an interviewer?
Well, I think it's always tricky, two stars interviewing each other, because I think someone has to listen, you know, a little more and wait for you to talk. Yeah. So I think she was kind of, I mean, she was very sweet, and I really did enjoy it. I did enjoy it. But I would have liked to have talked much more, but it was a 20-minute thing. So she said, see, that's why I was warning you, short, effective answers is what's required. Whereas I tend to ramble a bit and get to the point a little later.
So does that sort of give you sort of encouragement that maybe you'd want to do a chat show of your own someday?
You know, I'm just saying, like when you say you want to be a producer or when you say you want to be a chat show host, it's a very different job to what we are used to doing. Like I said, chat show is probably about listening and being charming and encouraging conversation and guiding conversation, which is a skill and a different skill to just answering questions, which is actually probably easier. You said
I find
at the beginning, that the
I find it more difficult to sort of give answers.
Yeah, well, then we're perfectly suited for our situations.
Well, there. So we sort of coordinated here. In an interview of hers, she said that the first reaction of Saif to anything is no.
Yeah, I've noticed that. She's right. And I think I need to watch that. I should start saying yes.
Is that sort of true?
You know, I think, yeah, maybe that started happening a bit. Because I'm always like, no, wait, what is this? And not entirely without reason. But I think, yeah, I'm more aware of that now. And I think one can be a bit, you shouldn't be too rigid in life. You know, you have to be like, yeah, okay, so what? What difference does it make, really?
You feel you're rigid, really?
No, not, I mean, you know, but there's an idea one has, I think I've inherited it from my mother, about how things should be. So, you know, that's where the fire should be, and this is like setting and organizing. Should we do it ulta? Oh, wait, I don't know. But yeah, okay, do it ulta now. It doesn't really matter. That's the new attitude I'm trying to develop.
Well, that's great. Which probably brings
Because I have obstinate friends.
Okay, you do.
Yeah, and they're quite annoying when I'm like, can we do this? No, we have to do this. So because of that, I've thought, hang on, maybe it'll be more pleasant if I'm less rigid about.
And are you that rigid when it comes to scripts as well? Like, does it take some time for you to sort of agree? Again, it's your career, so you have to.
You know, it sounds really obvious, but I think I should concentrate a little more. I mean, no, I think instinctively, it's a little difficult for me because the kind of films I really like might not be the most popular kind of film. So there's always that little worrying situation where I'm in, that it might be too niche or it might be too whatever, but it might not be, you know, it might not be really massy and really kind of mainstream. So I leave it to producers generally now to come up with the idea. And if a good mainstream producer thinks it's great, then that's his job, you know. And so I feel less worried about it now. As a producer and actor, I'd be quite stressed because the kind of films I want to make might not be the kind of films everyone wants to see. I mean, at times, yes, but at times, no. So, yeah, it's usually an instinctive reaction, though. Like I read a script called Bhoot Police, and I just thought it was really funny and really well written. And then I have a couple of people around me to read the scripts also and see if we concur. So I think that's changed, where there's become quite a big deal now when a script comes, where a lot of people read it. And then we make notes and then compare notes and say, what did you think? What did you think? How's the story? But how's the positioning of the role? Like, where's the, you know, is it making sense on every level to do this? Or earlier it was just, you know, me and an instinct. But now I'm trying to ask more people for their opinion as well.
You feel you're a better actor than a producer?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. But I can also sometimes produce interesting things. Like I thought Go Goa Gone was pretty interesting.
I agree.
Nobody really wanted to make that in our company. Love Aajkal was the first film I produced. Of course, Dinesh Vijan also produced it with me. But I think Imtiaz wanted to make Rockstar. And I said, let's make Love Aajkal, you know. So those decisions are also not bad.
But today, if you had to make more films to a production house, you find it a tricky situation? Because
no, we just have the right partners and we produced Jawani Janeman and all that. I'm just saying, I think a producer's main skill should be knowing what to make at which budget.
Correct, absolutely.
So I don't know if I have that skill, that if I can tell you that, you know,
that it'll work, like viable for everybody types.
Yeah, and how much and who and what and, you know, that much I don't know.
But that's an honest confession.
Yeah, of course.
And you mentioned Love Aajkal, and I must say that it must be kind of surreal, you know. Your daughter is sort of Karthik and Sara are playing in its, what do I say, second installment
Yeah,
sort of thing.
yeah.
It must be a little surreal.
Yeah, it is a bit surreal. Time flies, you know, you don't know. I mean, these things go by so quickly. I mean, Taimur's already 3. Sarah's well grown up. And that's the thing, and I think one of the things school teaches you, or taught me at least, is, you know, things work in batches also. And you get, there's certain phases in life, certain things. So you move on to other things. There's a time, there's an age for doing that sort of thing. And then there's an age for doing something else, which is as interesting and as absorbing, if not more absorbing. There's many things at Sarah's age which I just don't want to do. You know, so much of it. There's, you know, I'm quite happy I'm done with.
That age?
Yeah.
That
I mean,
phase.
personally and professionally, you know. Yeah, I'm very happy right here, whatever that means, and, you know, with its pluses and minuses. Health is important, fitness is important.
Sure.
And, you know, wisdom feels good, you know. I wouldn't want to trade it in at all. But yeah, it does feel a bit surreal. Even though I don't want to do Love Aajkal now. I want to do Hunter, you know. I want to do the kind of work that I'm doing.
And did she sort of come to you and ask that, you know, it's like, do you want to sort of advise me?
She doesn't really ask me for advice on how. She did once when she was doing Kedarnath. She brought a scene over and we read it together. I was offered a part in Homeland, but they wanted me to read something.
You were offered a part in Homeland?
Yeah,
Wow.
and Sara helped me read it, and she was really. So we've done some of that together, and we talk about it sometimes when something comes up. I think something about the environment she called and asked me. We discussed what, you know, how to frame thoughts sometimes. But about scripts and things, no, because I mean, these are decisions you have to make yourself. I mean, you can ask, and she does, that, you know, what do you think about this film? And I say, you know, it sounds great. I don't overthink it, you know, it sounds brilliant. Things like that, but not too much detail.
Because you also respect that individual journey of an actor. You know, you
Yeah,
want
you've
that
got
to
to
happen.
also, you've got to make your own decisions, because you don't want to blame other people, you know, and you don't want to be blamed. It can really, it's easy to blame other people. You made me do this, and then.
You've played the antagonist, you've played characters with grey shades and all of that. So, and for you, you've always mentioned that as long as the character is interesting, I really don't have a problem whether it's the hero or whether it's what. There was a recent film, Kabir Singh, which got a lot of flack on social media because of the content of the film. They felt we have to be more responsible towards showing of certain characters. You're someone who's very self-aware and you self-reflect a lot as well. When you are taking up roles and characters, Saif, are you aware of that? You know, maybe my role should not be portrayed in a way because, you know, I have people looking up to me.
Yeah, no, I've never been aware of the social or political or, you know, the ramifications or the effect of this role on society. I've never thought of that. I've only thought of the dramatic potential and the interest in this story. I've never thought whether, and maybe I should have. I mean, there was a film I was offered, you know, like Batla House. A long time ago. Of course, it went on to be a very successful film with John, who was very good in it. But somebody said, "Oh, good, you didn't do it," you know, because it's kind of anti-Muslim, is what I heard. But I never thought that. I never thought. I don't think in terms. That's not where I go as an actor. Just like, you know, do I want to do this or not? So if something is misogynistic or something, I think it depends on whether it just turns me on as a script or not, and if someone's making it. I mean, of course, if it's blatantly socially irresponsible, maybe it would not appeal to me. Maybe, you know, or maybe the situations that guy is in would not be situations I would enjoy performing. So then that's why we're all different, you know.
And then you probably say that, you know, can we make those changes?
Or I don't want to do this because I don't want to wake up in the morning and come there and do this.
Yeah.
You know, but if the entire country laps up something and they love it, it makes you think that, you know, what are we doing? And are we making, I mean, are we making the right kind of entertainment? And should we be preaching or should we give the people what they want? I don't know. I mean, these guys who have made it will be laughing all the way to the bank.
I agree.
So I
No,
don't know. But I'm saying, if you're asking me, my thing is just based on that scene. Do I think, oh, that's really interesting, that's so different, I think it's really cool, I'd love to do it, you know? Maybe I'd do that. That's the only thing. If I am assuming if a producer is making it and if a director is making it, then you know, maybe that's their, they should be looking out for that. But as an actor, when it comes to me, I just look at the dramatic and whether the audience is going to be interested or not. In fact, I should think about that more. I actually think whether I'll be interested or not, which is a difference.
You know, Amir, in the 90s, you know, everybody's had been part of films like that. And Amir comes out and says all the time that I'm so ashamed of you films that blatantly glorified stalking or blatantly had scenes that were offensive to women, and I would not do it now. Now, I feel that is not saying no to a genre or saying no to a religion or a society, but that's like a moral call that you take, saying that, you know, this is just wrong.
I mean, the male stalker is almost a genre for Indian cinema. I mean, you know, it's like the obsessive lover and the unloved lover. It's that quiet, you know, poor chap, and somehow it's always been successful. And, you know, Shah Rukh Khan made his career on it in the beginning. And so people loved it. And, you know, so I don't know. I mean, it's like a society thing. I mean, maybe the Western and the Lone Ranger who goes around shooting people is a terrible thing also. But people love the cop, Dirty Harry, who takes a gun and, you know, takes justice into his own hands. With uproar in the West. People said that this is, you know, when the peace movement is happening, there's this violent cop. So Clint Eastwood celebrating violence. So popular stuff like that has always engaged a little bit of a massive amount of criticism. But to say, you know, I'm ashamed of that and I wouldn't play that is one point of view. But also, you know, we have a tendency to give the audience what we feel they want. And play, and again, I think these characters must have trickled down from the West. There must have been some, because we copy a lot. So there must have been a thing, you know, where there were these films, like there was a Matt Dillon film that became Bazigar. It was not an original Indian idea. It's a Western film about a guy who starts bumping off the girls in the family that he wants to take revenge on. I forget what it's called. Kiss Before Dying or something. I can't. The development of society and the development of human nature is the development of the stopping of doing terrible things and being more polite to each other. In the 70s, people are racist and they call you, you know, all kinds of names. They don't do that now. Women are slapped on the butt and told this, that, and hopefully it doesn't happen so much now. Like this, there's a struggle that goes on and we become more and more civilized, apparently. And similar, you know, these arguments continue that you can't show this and you shouldn't do that. And yes, this was politically incorrect. And yeah, I mean, it is a really strange role in a film to have this guy who stalks you and then, you know, wants to kill himself or kill you. And the fact that it's really popular says something about the romantic nature of our society.
It is. I feel like the glorification part of it, and there's no sort of, in simpler words, punishment. You know, you see that a person does that and he's really suffering towards the end. You come out weirdly satisfied, saying that, oh, you know, he was a brilliant job.
Absolutely.
So my point is, maybe there's a line that we need to sort of balance. I feel like we cannot even say actors can't do this, can't do that, because at the end of the day, we are almost asking you all to be more experimental all the time.
I think the audience ultimately decides. You know, there are certain things. I remember when Spike Lee made that film Old Boy. So when there's an incestuous scene between a father and daughter, nobody wants to see that, and the film doesn't run. So people won't make it because that's, you know, kind of disgusting, and people were like, that's not happening. So the audience draws the line where they say, oh God, no, we don't want to watch this. But if they do want to watch it, then there's a guy who'd be willing to do that, you know. The producer will be willing to make the money for sure, and the actor might be excited to cross that line and do something, whatever. But there is a satisfaction that's important when it comes to movies, where people have to relate and root for and support certain characters, and justice has to be done. Or, you know, Aristotle called it what, catharsis.
Absolutely.
Right? It has to happen, that you have to watch it and say, this guy should have got this, or that guy should not get this. So what does it mean that it's so successful?
I don't know, maybe people didn't see that. Maybe people think that, I think because it was celebrated also as a love story, I think people bought into that. Like, you like that routine. Like, for example, I remember you told me there are few things that you truly cherish and you want to do it over and over. Like going to a holiday with your wife and family to Switzerland. You know, visiting your palatial Pataudi place back home, and which you did. What are the other constants in your life that you cherish?
Oh, you know, I've been very constant. You
Yeah?
know, if I read comments that I've made years ago, or things that I've said, or I look at a phone message, actually this is a good thing. If I look at you know, because phone history sometimes can go back weeks if you don't delete it, right? And I'm wanting to say something, then I say, oh, I just said this, or I said this last week. Exactly the same lines, but I thought I was coming up with a new thought, you know. But I've said it before, because I had the same reaction to most. I'm pretty consistent, yeah.
So a lot of things, basically.
Yeah, but you know, usually emotional reactions.
Emotional reactions to things. And talking of emotional reactions, I think I
And
would
food.
and food. I like the fact that you, you know, you walk out sometimes to just go and do shopping, and you know, you just, even though you know you're going to get papped or you're going to
Yeah.
get probably mobbed, and you want your son to have that similar grounded and sometimes real experiences, like telling him, you know, showing him to people. That is an important part of your life, isn't it?
Of course it is, and it'd be so nice if we could, you know, do it more often. But sometimes it's a little difficult. It's, you know, the price you pay for celebrity. But it'd be so nice if we could, and it's nice in places like Patodi to go and, you know, see the farm animals. And when he's abroad, you know, he loves to go to petting zoos and things like this. I wish we had more of those things here.
But you did get the reaction that you wanted him to. He was genuinely sort of happy at that, right?
Yeah, he's quite a nature boy. It's good that way. He likes running around outside barefoot, which is what I would have wanted.
It's been many years for you in the industry. We all evolve. What has changed in your acting process?
I think also the kind of scripts and the kind of things that the whole environment has changed, but I think it's become much more like how it should be, creative and organized. In the acting processes, there's a different form of communication. It's not so blatant, you know. There are different things of putting across. It's become quite complex. You know, sometimes a small gesture puts it across. Sometimes the lines can be, it's not as black and white as it used to be. So it's a more, various things can communicate what you're trying to communicate, you know. So that opportunity is there, and the genres of film have become so different, whether it's like horror comedy or whether it's a, you know, historical revenge drama like we just did in Laal Kaptaan. So there are different types of characters that require different forms, and I think doing that, you know, you learn and you grow and you become like, I mean, doing something like this is really big time. I mean, it's so difficult. You'd have to ask, I mean, the actors that come to mind really are, you know, to an extent, Ranveer Singh and Amitabh Bachchan, who probably know what it's like to, I don't know how many other people even know what it's like to kind of.
No, I think you sum it up well.
Do something like that. So
Yeah.
the thing is that, so processes have changed. I mean, you learn the lines, you figure out the characters, become much more like the Western school of acting, like how it used to be. Because 20 years ago, I mean, just say your lines like yourself. But now you say your lines differently with each film, depending on what you're playing.
Absolutely, well. And I'm sure it makes you more satisfied as well as
That's
an
the
actor.
whole thing. I mean, life is whatever, and you living it, and it's going fast. But this is the thing. You have to, it is an art, living life. Like, you have to know and specifically celebrate things and make an effort to kind of be aware and live well and have an interesting job, you know, whatever it is. And if it's interesting, it's a bonus, because you just do that and then come home and, you know, be with people that love you and have a nice evening, hopefully.
Thank you, Saif.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.